play really, really hard, and they execute the system, and that's what it's all about.
Yes, sir.
Trust.
He's pretty big trust.
Big trust, baby.
Hey, yes, sir.
Right on cue. Hey, right on cue. Hey, let me.
The Jumbo Set is back. It is Wednesday, my dudes, not my nudes. My name is Jake Louque. I'm joined on my screen by September Spenny. How's it going?
Going well. Would love to start this out in remembrance of Brooks Robinson, who tragically passed away. Maybe not necessarily tragically, but unfortunately might be a better word to use. Unfortunately passed away today. Very sad news. Mr. Oriole, the real first superstar that the city of Baltimore had in Baltimore, I would say. He was before
Second.
Cal.
Johnny U, second.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Pardon me. First Oriole. Good correction there. So really the first Oriole superstar alongside Johnny, sets the stage for guys like Jim Palmer, Cal Ripken. And when you go, and Eric reposted a video of, I think it was from 2019, if I'm not mistaken, one of Brooks's birthdays where I think Ryan Wagner hosted it. And it was just a slew of Orioles and Larry Hogan and notable Maryland folk, Justin Tucker, just wishing him a happy birthday. And all of them, the first thing they wanted to mention was how nice and special of a person he was and how he treated everyone with so much kindness and dignity and respect. So a wonderful person, someone who's obviously entrenched into the soul of Baltimore, and we'll miss Brooks. Rest in peace to Brooks. It's super sad. Got a little tear going in my eyes earlier when I watched that happy birthday video. So we would be remiss. The flagship boys, if you want more on that, are going to record an episode tonight too that will release just like the Jumbo Set will on Wednesday. So if you're listening now, that one is also up and you guys can go get a much deeper dive. I mean, Eric and Brian, I think, we love the Orioles. We've been lifelong Orioles fans. Those guys are a little more sick in the head about the Orioles than we are.
I might actually try to throw some stuff together too, because he's like one of those guys for sure that's you just hear about in this town. And you mentioned it. Really, he was kind of one of those first guys. I think Johnny really was the first, but then Brooks, he came in kind of the middle of the 60s. I was reading up a little bit in the last couple hours, and it's like they found him in the middle of Arkansas where he grew up, and they had gotten some tip from a scout, and they went out there and scouted him. And I think it was the Yankees and some Cincinnati franchise that doesn't exist anymore. Maybe they turned into the Reds, but it was a bidding war, and they got him for a $4,000 contract. And you get, a decade plus of just amazing play out of him, 2 World Series titles. It's awesome. All that he did, on the diamond and at the hot corner there. But yeah, it's just your legacy, really what keeps you alive in the eyes of people and what kind of passes you down from generation to generation is how you treat people. And, from what I hear, it's kind of reminds me a lot of Arnold Palmer, who, he built the brand and everything, and he was a great player, but he was super nice to literally everyone he ever met, fans and everything. And the same goes for Brooks. You just hear all these stories about nice guy, would give everyone at least like 5 minutes, kind of had that kind of magnetism, that tractor beam quality to him. And you never hear a bad word about the guy. Just a true 100% approval rating type of person, which you do not see really in the world at all. So rest in peace.
No, you don't. And you nailed it. I think a lot of what you can say about Brooks Robinson is our demographic, obviously, is people that are around our age that grew up in this area, are likely an Orioles fan, but maybe not. And Brooks Robinson had an event. I think Ken Singleton was eulogizing on 105.7 from what I saw. And at one point, the MC asked everyone named Brooks in the crowd to stand up, and 30 people stood up because everybody wanted to name their son Brooks after Brooks Robinson. That's what kind of person he was, in addition to what type of player he was.
It's funny. Yeah, I was at Salisbury with his grandson, and I didn't know him super well, but we were supposed to room together at one point, I think, and for whatever reason that just kind of fell through. I think we wound up both doing different things, but just one of those weird sliding doors moments where if I had had that happen, maybe I would have got to meet Brooks, which I really looking back on it, it's a day like today where you think, man, I never got to meet the guy. It's unfortunate, but for everyone who did, they seem to say that it was well worth the experience. So.
Man, I guess his grandson dodged a bullet there.
Oh, stop. That was a great roommate.
Of course. You're very tidy. You're very neat. You're polite. of course. He would have been so lucky to have you. So yeah, with that, like we said, rest in peace, Brooks. Head on over to the flagship pod. We'll be talking about that a good bit. And so will the city of Baltimore with this special Orioles run that's been happening this year as they fight to win the AL, push through the playoffs, everything like that. So with that in mind, I guess we can kind of flip on over, but obviously the Ravens lose. I was not on the reaction episode. You and Brian covered it, did a great job there. You guys got into some thickets there with what's going on and just a tough game to digest. A lot of strange circumstances, felt a lot like a lot of games that we saw last year, and a lot of frustration from the Ravens fan base. So it was a tough loss, a game that the Ravens had, I want to say, 5 opportunities to put away, especially all really once that safety ensued. And from there, just a whole show started. It was a game against a team when we did the preview episode last week. We said maybe this Colts team is actually pretty well coached. Maybe Shane Steichen and DeMeco Ryans are good coaches, and the AFC South might not be bad anymore if these are young coaches that have these guys playing right. Oh, look, the Texans go and demolish the Jaguars, and the Colts go steal a win from the jaws of defeat. It was really cool seeing the Colts run that field goal gambit, which can make the Ravens have to burn a timeout. Like the risk reward there of the Colts doing that is awesome for them. And the Ravens kind of blundered that game late. See Isaiah Likely drop a pass. See the Ravens fumble the ball a few times. See all of these things. So unfortunate loss in a crappy day, crappy Sunday, 1:00, cloudy. It's been raining. Is it going to be windy? The crowd was into it, I would say, at the stadium, but not really. It was just it was weird. It wasn't a packed house. It wasn't empty, but it wasn't a packed house, and the vibe was, God damn it, why does it keep raining a little bit? I think that's a lot of people's sentiment, and you go drop a game to a team that you wish you would have beat. But at the same time, got to give some credit to the Colts. Julius Brents in his first game hawks down Kenyon Drake early in that game, turns the ball over. Then Samson Ebukam, who had a day. When we get into it a little bit, I'll probably talk about him a good bit, but Ebukam goes and forces a fumble on the ensuing possession. I think Lamar was able to jump on it, and that ended the Ravens' possession again. The Colts have the ball again. So from there, just really a strong performance by the Colts defense in many ways, in addition to some sloppiness from the Ravens offense. But hey, missing a lot of starters, and a lot of guys are playing that maybe didn't have a lot of reps in the summer. You didn't play anybody in the preseason. You feel good about what you did in Cincy, and then you have a nice reality check after, Jake, you talked about in the preview, maybe a little bit of an emotional letdown as a possibility. And I think that it was a emotional letdown by the coaching staff, including Johnny Harbaugh, who we both love as much as anybody else really does. And I would say that there were instances that John Harbaugh alone let this one slip through his fingertips. I think he would say that too. I think he has said several times, this is always coach speak, put it on my shoulders. But he did say, you can blame me for this one. So when you're talking about trying to maybe win a division, or maybe get a home playoff game instead of an away playoff game, or maybe get a bye, that's a game where your head football coach, John Harbaugh, the veteran, one of the sons of Baltimore at this point, fudged up and let it kind of fall through his fingertips. So we'll get into it a little deeper, but I guess that was just kind of my thoughts on that game from the 30,000-foot overview. Yeah, and that's really what frustrates me about it. And I got into this plenty. I was pretty clear-headed and sober on the Sunday Night Podcast, and it was just like, it is on John 100%. John's my guy, but you mentioned the emotional letdown. It just feels like this happens at least once a year. And in recent years, it's happened more than once a year, I feel like. And it's just tough because you start out in week 1 and you get that kind of win in not a super convincing way, but you win by 2 scores. It's very nice. And you go in there, you get that big emotional win. We were all buzzing, riding high, watched it, together with Brian, and we all had an amazing time. And it's like, man, is this year going to be different? And I had picked them to start 2-3, right? And I was like, well, if they win this thing and they get to 3-0, and then, a couple tough divisional games in the London game, Titans, I get that that's very tough. But if you get to 3-0, you're setting yourself up really well. And by set yourself up really well, it's to go and be among the AFC's elite for the first time in 4 years. And it just felt like they were stepping on their own tail the last couple of years, and they just, for whatever reason, and I know Lamar was hurt the last 2 years, so that's certainly part of it, but it just feels like they, even with Lamar in the lineup, would have games like this where you just don't take care of your business, and you get yourself you get yourself in a lot of trouble when it comes to the final picture as far as seeding goes, and you're hoping for the 3rd seed at best.
And that's just not going to cut it for a team that needs to have some playoff success. You've got to set yourself up as best as possible. And you're just not getting off on the right foot here by doing this kind of thing. And like I made this comparison on the Sunday Night Pod where it feels like the Ravens sometimes, like they feel like Rain Man. Like they can do these like amazing calculations and like a beautiful mind, and they're doing all this amazing things. And that's like their big wins like that against in Cincinnati, but then they can't tie their shoes and they can't brush their teeth and they can't do normal hygiene and they can't like take care of just the regular business, the small little things that you stack up a bunch of them and they make you good. And then when you're consistently good, you become great, or you rank among the league or the conference, at least the greats in the conference, and you get yourself a 1 seed or a 2 seed. But it's just, you have these letdowns, you have games like this. And I don't know. I just thought for a minute there that maybe this year would be different, but I walked out of that game not super convinced. It just feels like, and I still fully expect them to win at least 10 games, but it just feels like that's kind of 10, 11, maybe 12 if they're lucky is where they're going to wind up. The Chiefs are going to be better. The Bills are maybe going to be better. Who knows what's going to happen with the Bengals after they get that win? Will they get hot? Not super convinced, but it's possible.
The Dolphins.
And yeah, the Dolphins certainly. But and it also felt like with what happened with the Bengals in that game, and then, you know, they didn't like I said, they didn't look great last night. That felt like an opportunity to go out there and say, hey, quarterback issues in Cleveland, Pittsburgh, kind of a growing team. We'll see what happens with them. But Cincinnati, maybe a down year. You had a great opportunity to go and kind of supplant them a little bit and like be one of those not just good teams, but one of those feared teams within the AFC. And I can't say that I'm seeing it right now. I know there's a lot of injury issues and this and that, but that's why you have.
I mean, but that's part of it, right? Why are you not thinking that? That is why. And Colin Cowherd, shout out Bobby Trossett, our boy. He gotten some whole thing, sharing, hey, Colin Cowherd's prediction of the Ravens. He said, I think they're going to miss the playoffs because they're hurt every year. And everybody gets up in arms. Well, they're not hurt. Well, they have been. So that's kind of an innocent until proven guilty, where it's like, I don't trust them to stay healthy.
That's where I want this coaching staff to raise the floor. You got to raise the floor if you're a coaching staff like this, because you are goddamn good enough. If you're John Harbaugh, you're good enough. If you're Mike McDonald, you've convinced me that you're good enough. Todd Monken, what he did last week, he painted a fucking Mozart piece. You are good enough, I think, to raise the floor enough to make the extra 1, 2, 3 plays that are needed. And you had 5 fucking opportunities, to your point, to go and do what you needed to do to close that thing out. And you didn't get it done. And it's just frustrating. And I know
some of those things, though, at the same time, it's like Isaiah Likely has a ball carom off of his chest.
Sure.
Pretty much puts the game away. So it was just, you're spot on, but it's just, frustrating.
No, I know. And I'm trying, and I don't want to be too emotional about it, because I've had games like that with the Dolphins game last year. I got on and I was super fired up, but like at a certain point, like we kind of know what the issues are at times. And I think we very clearly know what happened in this game, and it was a failure in coaching. And I just think that's unfortunate, because this coaching staff is good enough to overcome these issues, at least when you're in the position to do so, like they were 5 times, and they didn't. So that's my soliloquy. I don't have to belabor the point. I think I'm making a lot of the same points.
You said you don't, you get emotional. I think people want to hear that. The emotion's fun. We don't want to just sound like this for the entire podcast. So feel free to do that. And you make great points. It's just, again, it's the same. It's the same. And Monken's offense, Roman, whatever. I'll get into that a little bit. Whatever
and the injury stuff too. I mean, like Steve Saunders.
That's what I'm saying. The injuries and some weird closing situations. How do you close? How do you finish? How do you end it? How do you stick the dagger in the heart of the Jacksonville Jaguars in a game where you had a 2-score lead in the 4th quarter?
Yeah, and like Steve Saunders is gone now. So like you can't point to that. Like, so what's going on with the injuries? We don't know. Maybe it's just shit luck, and maybe that just happens. Like I think part of it too, hey, maybe 1 or 2 of those guys could have played this week, risked re-injury 10% more if they would have played. I think they could have, and I think that's kind of another failure here of this coaching staff, a little bit of hubris. I think we saw that with the Chiefs in week 1 when they didn't play Kelsey. And that kind of when they lost that game, that raised a little bit of an alarm bell for me when the injuries started to pile up here. And I was like, well, some cupcakes on this opening schedule. We'll see what happens. And then, boom, what do you get? A loss
to the NFL. If it's the NFL, there are no cupcakes. The Dallas Cowboys get whooped by Josh Dobbs and the Arizona Cardinals. Whooped the Cowboys. Jonathan Gannon just firing his laser into good old Mike McCarthy there. So that's exactly the point. It's the NFL. That stuff happens, let alone, a Zay Flowers missed defensive pass interference that I think it's just fun. Like, it's funny to look back on to me. It's funny. That's what it takes for the Ravens. I think I texted you guys. We read it on here, but it was like, all right, Matt. I kept saying Matt Gay made 3 50-yard field goals. Matt Gay made 4 50-yard field goals. Four. And hey, it wasn't raining. Really, it was a little.
The ground was wet. It's not easy.
The ground was wet. The ground was wet.
Yeah, like it's not easy to plant your feet in that kind of conditions. And
definitely, but there was no wind. The ground was wet, whatever. But still, there was some sort of NFL record. I don't have it in front of me. Matt Gay bangs 4 field goals. The Ravens only have 1 penalty in that game. I think it was a 5-yard false start on Morgan Moses in a completely meaningless point of the game. Lamar Jackson tears the Colts up on the ground. Looked like his old self in many ways when he was a little bit more spry, 23, 22-year-old, whatever. And you safety the Colts with just over 2 minutes left to make the game a 3-point lead. The Colts have 1 timeout, and you end up losing that game with a 3-point lead after safetying them. The overtime blunders, the missed penalty on Zay Flowers. There was a couple missed penalties in this game. I think the refs were a little laissez-faire, and hey, that's what we often root for as fans, for the refs to be laissez-faire until it scorns your team or your bet or your fantasy team.
I didn't have as much a problem with the missed PI. Like, I feel like we've seen that happen before, and I feel like we've seen them kind of keep the flag in their pocket there. And I am very much, like you said, like, keep it in your pocket at the end of the game.
You love the subjectivity of referees and those kinds of things happening in general in every sport.
I do. I'm a big fan of the human element. I just think that it's very chaotic and it's fun. It does hurt to get burned by it, but let me tell you, we've been on the right side of it too a couple times. Our close personal friend Jimmy Smith being a big personal example of that we can look at the end of a certain Super Bowl. But yeah, it just like it, you know, I was okay with them kind of holstering that one. The face mask was tough. A couple other really, really bad ones too. So you could certainly say a ref job, but you know, it's just tough when, like I said, you shoot yourself in the foot so many times, you don't even have a foot anymore. You can't really point the finger at too many other people.
It happens. It's just going to happen. That's just the way it is. But I guess for us ripping through segments, just some general notes there.
Some things will never change.
They won't.
Hornsby there. Love Hornsby.
They won't change. But that can get us into our mega culpa on this jumbo set podcast. If you're listening right now, would love to say, hey, go throw us 5 stars. Hey, go subscribe to the Exit 52 YouTube channel. I think the number one way that you can support our content today, support Jake, Spencer, as well as Eric, Brian, and Taylor, is to subscribe to our YouTube channel. If it's convenient for you, we would love if you would listen to the podcast on YouTube as we try to grow it instead of on Apple or Spotify or wherever else. So we appreciate you guys.
Do them all. Give us the downloads, give us the listens, give us the just do it all.
You can't hurt us by downloading it in multiple places, anything like that, whatever. But if we have our preference and it is of no difference to you, we would love for you to listen and check out YouTube as we're trying to grow it. With that, we can get into our first segment. We're going to be a little bit more regimented into these. Our first segment every week is going to be our mega culpa. Bum, bum, bum. Let's go back and talk about maybe some things that we thought that didn't end up happening, or maybe some things that we would like a second chance at, or anything of the sort. The one thing that sticks out to me that I was wrong about thinking about this game and in the last couple of days, I guess, or last week or so, is that I just genuinely, Zach Moss, not a guy that I disrespect in any way, but Zach Moss had himself a day. The Colts were able to very much get some push. They were able to go convert in some short yardage situations on the ground. They were able to generate a couple explosive runs. John Harbaugh said, hey, we had a great day except for 4 runs. Yeah. And then the John Harbaugh detractors were like, well, of course, if you take away Derrick Henry's 99-yard touchdown, then he won't. I get it. But Colts did a nice job. I thought the Colts would not even be able to manufacture anything. Then suddenly, Robinson and Moon are playing the lion's share out there. And it's not that they even had a poor performance. It's that the Colts were able to attack the perimeter a little tiny bit in the run game. They were able to move the ball enough on the ground, more than I thought they would be able to. It wasn't that they were, killing you. They were just able to move the ball comfortably enough to give themselves a chance on the ground, I'd say. So that was the one thing that I thought the Ravens would really just jokingly stuff would be the Colts run game. They didn't. And Zach Moss goes and mosses Patrick Queen a little bit. Queen on that one says that he thinks he started to look back for the ball too soon instead of staying engaged, which allowed Zach Moss to not push off in the sense of offensive pass interference, but extend and create separation, which is exactly what he did. So Zach Moss had a great game in this one. I didn't see that coming. So I think that's my mea culpa there. The Colts were able to run the ball. I did not think they would be able to at all.
I thought it would be one or the other. I thought that they would either key on the run or they would key on the pass, and like one would have to go the certain way. But they ran it okay. To your point, they had the 4 big runs. It wasn't a whole lot really going like the other way there, but I don't know. Like Moss, to your point, those 4 big runs, they were huge for them, and then the catch over Queen. I feel like that was really a part of what proved to be the difference, and that kind of set the tone for Minshew and really helped him settle in. But yeah, I mean, like overall, like mine is, like I said, it was either going to be one or the other, but they had success doing both. They ran it pretty well, and then once they got into a rhythm with passing, and I think Minshew completed like 10 in a row on one of their touchdown drives, that just really is when the game started to break open. They were sustaining drives. They were tiring the Ravens defense out. I think the Ravens offense in kind was getting frustrated on the sidelines a little bit because they just weren't seeing the ball for long stretches of the game, similar to how they had done to their defense on the opening drive themselves. When they had another tone-setting opening drive, they go out there, they run the ball really well. They throw it a couple times to different receivers, spread it around. Lamar Jackson runs it in for that touchdown. But yeah, overall, I thought the defense had a solid day. I mean, Kyle Hamilton looked amazing. Clowney looked really good again. Roquan and Queen were, I thought overall on balance, they had good performances, but there was just long sustained stretches of not being able to stop the pass with Minshew just kind of doing those easy little bing, boom, bing, Francesa, here, there. And then the run game as well there with Moss. Just not a consistently good enough day from the defense. And I don't know, it felt a little schizophrenic at times. They couldn't really key in on one thing or the other, and I think it cost them.
Yeah, and I think the Colts did a good job mixing things up and were able to scheme up some of those plays while also being really overwhelmed by the Ravens' pressure looks too. And Gardner Minshew, we talked about him. He's a tough dude. He's going to stick in there. He'll take shots. He'll do whatever it takes. One of the plays of the game, I did a breakdown. If you're interested in watching, people I guess just really don't care after losses for film content. I make one after a win. We get a bunch of views. I'm like, great, YouTube's coming along.
Which I told you anecdotally, like, yeah, that's exactly how it is with me. Like
that's what you say. You're like, I don't care after a loss. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to look at it. I don't want to feel upset or angry.
I'm like, yeah, what's in the golf podcast like rotation this week? What do they watch on the rewatchables? Like, I'm gonna check that out this week. Like,
fair enough. Absolutely fair enough. But so I ended up taking a look at all 3 of Kyle Hamilton's sacks. Check that out. Exit 52, Spenny Spotlight YouTube channel. Exit 52. Go check out Spenny Spotlight. It was really cool. It was really fun. Mike McDonald talked about it, playing Madden, doing all kinds of fun stuff. He's bringing pressure. He's there. He's here. He's there. He's every fucking where. Mikey Mac. Has Kyle Hamilton rush off the same side 3 times. Hamilton did do a great job disguising it. Basically, it was what we talked about, overloading pressure. Michael Pierce and Justin Madubuike. On 2 of those plays, Michael Pierce was in coverage. And it was, hey, we're going to blitz off this side. We're overloading pressure on one side. Then the DTs engaged the lineman, dropped off into coverage. It forced Minshew to hold the ball because his immediate hot reads were taken away. And they overloaded the other side where they had more rushers than there were blockers. Kyle Hamilton twice able to go just absolutely rocket Gardner Minshew. And on one of them was a little bit, Hamilton was able to beat a back. The back was late to scan and ID. Hamilton was able to rip through, go force that fumble. But what a play by Quentin Nelson. I'll say Jeremiah Moon tries to do the scoop, misses the scoop a little bit. Quentin Nelson comes in, A+, 100 out of 100. Effort hustle, aka Huffert, as I just tried to say.
Wow.
A+ effort to go punch the ball away from Brandon Stevens, Gardner Minshew, Michael Pittman come flying in, make sure that that's not a fumble recovery, save themselves a ton of field position in a game where field position was really making a huge difference. So those are a couple of things that stood out to me. I'll just kind of ramble through, I guess, in my quote-unquote notebook. First thing I wrote down was back-to-back scripted opening drive touchdowns last week in Cincy, this week in Indianapolis from the offense. Lamar scores with beautiful patience to set up blocks on a bash, which we saw a ton with Greg Roman, run, back away, quarterback counterplay, and punches it in. Really did a nice job setting up leverage for Mustafa and then just snaking into the end zone. Kenyon Drake's fumble, which was really the giant momentum shift. If you can't see momentum or don't want to quantify it or want to pretend it's not there, bullshit. But on that play, Kenyon Drake runs a Texas route, and it was actually a sneaky little hybrid screen. The ball was always going to go to Drake. They were getting a lot of really void holes there. And Kevin Zeitler goes and pops out like a screen kind of, just released upfield immediately as Lamar gets the ball to Drake. Drake makes a couple guys miss. So that was a really cool play. But then rookie Julius Brents just hawks the ball out from behind, made a play, get the ball, and was difficult after that. Samson Ebukam of the Colts blew up at least 5 plays by my count in various ways, has a strip sack. He diagnosed a screen to Zay Flowers I had written down. It was a fake pitch to Drake, I believe, and then it came back to a tunnel screen on the other side. Ebukam was the only man there that could have prevented that from being a touchdown. And guess what he did? Stayed home, did his job, tripped up Zay Flowers, and then that allowed the defense to go rally. In the third quarter, I started thinking, I wrote down, why is Pat Ricard not in? Every time he's been in so far, they've played well. Ricard was on the field for 17 rushing plays, 2 pass plays, and didn't stay into block fully on either of the 2 pass plays he released ultimately. So he did chip at least, so that comes with a grain of salt. In the third quarter, the Ravens brought Pat Ricard in for most of a drive. Guess what? They got clean pockets, they ran the football effectively, and then they scored a touchdown. Then he didn't play the rest of the game. We love Pat Ricard, but even if we didn't like him, if he was a jerk to us and mean to us and was never on our podcast before, put Pat Ricard on the football field. Good things tend to happen. Final kind of note I had really, Monken has ran so many quarterback draws. I was astounded. It felt like, during the game, you're like, oh, wow, he's getting some quarterback draws. No, they were really running quarterback draws. I think at least 4 of them. Some of them were RPOs, but really just, it's like a fake RPO. The receivers are just running to the perimeter to create more space. So he dialed those in, scores a touchdown. The second touchdown offensively was on one of those. Saw a ton of those. We also saw just draw in general. It felt like the Colts leave the A gap uncovered. They are kind of have B gap and C or D gaps occupied. Monken's old school answer to pressure from that was to run draw, as opposed to some other new age stuff. It was, I'm going to run Gus Edwards on a draw. I'm going to run Melvin Gordon on a draw. I'm going to run a quarterback draw. So I thought that was an interesting response. Just a simple one, and it honestly did work. So I'll give some credit there. The kind of final thing I had was that the Ravens, and I saw a visualization, data visualization, the Ravens are one of the teams that is pushing tempo the highest above expectation. In other words, as opposed to average, the Ravens are running plays faster. There's a lot of discourse, Todd Monken, Greg Roman, the offense similarities, Ryan Clark saying, it's the same thing and the changes he makes are messed up, whatever.
Yeah, it's funny. He didn't seem to have that take last week, literally last week, 1 week from what are we doing, Ryan?
That's and again, last week I kind of got into Brett Coleman a little bit for some generalist things he was saying that just didn't make sense to me. It's just, I think that's why people don't really like to watch national football coverage as much, especially like during the day, during the week. It's like, we know you didn't watch all of that game. You weren't really dialed in, but pregame stuff, I think people like that kind of content. So can't they just have each of the 4 guys on a show dial into 4 teams for the year? I don't know, just something. So I thought that was ridiculous, but what I wrote down was that the tempo is there. The continuity isn't there to run tempo. To run tempo, you can't have quick fuck-ups. If you have quick fuck-ups when you're going fast, you have massively bad, blown assignments and execution, and suddenly Sam Mustipher snapping the ball before Lamar's ready. Things like that. So I like the tempo a lot. I think that it was needed because there are starters there. It's not like their whole offense is out. Most of their offense is there. Zeitler, Moses, John Simpson, Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely plays a lot. Rashad Bateman plays a lot. Zay Flowers, all those guys. They needed those reps going fast. They need to get Ronnie Stanley and Tyler Linderbaum back. And if they can get any modicum of continuity for maybe 1 or 2 weeks, like having 9 of your 14 main guys offensively, I think we'll see this tempo really start to hurt teams. So I'm encouraged by what I saw from the tempo. And then my final note actually was that the offensive line was overwhelmed. I charted it. I forgot about this one. In the fourth quarter and overtime, the Ravens had 17 true pass plays. In other words, it wasn't a screen. It wasn't an RPO. It was a true pass set. They ran 5-man protection, so no back or tight end helping their 5-man offensive line 11 times. I think the Colts had 8 pressures on those 11 5-man protections. You can't do that to a backup offensive line when you're getting your ass kicked. Bring someone in to chip. Bring 2 guys into chip. Run 3-man route concepts where guys leak into the flat and occupy some space. Mark Andrews stays in. It was a 7-man protection with Mark Andrews on one of them, 19-yard gain to Nelson Aguilar. Lamar is able to push the ball downfield to Duvernay. It was a bad throw, but had a clean pocket. Todd Monken, you need to help your offensive line out. They're not that good, and you have backups in. You can't keep letting them get absolutely fried. So those are kind of all my notes as I went through offensively. Defensively, I could get into it. I'm just not going to. They played well. They played well defensively. Got beat a couple times, whatever.
Yeah, it's a lot there, but offensively, like, yeah, to your point, I liked some of the stuff that I saw. I love the quarterback movement. I think people were kind of the reports of the, Lamar Jackson design run deaths, I think were greatly exaggerated. It was just kind of based upon what they were getting against the Bengals. And I think we even called it going into that game. Just take what they give you. They're probably just going to kind of sit back and do the Lou Anarumo thing. And it worked out pretty well for them. But I don't know. They kind of set a tone really with running him on that first drive there. And then they run him for a touchdown. And it worked out really well at certain points, but they also went away from it at times. And then they were having turnover issues and they were just getting stuffed on, in other situations. And then you mentioned the quarterback draw stuff. I actually called it on that second touchdown run. They spread it out. I'm like, oh, he's going quarterback draw here. And then he does, and then touchdown run. So I don't know. It was to the point where, it's coming and they couldn't even stop it. So that was cool to see. Encouraging to see, to your point, that he looked kind of almost as spry and slippery as he was when he was 22, 23. So that was nice.
Definitely did look spry. Made a lot of guys miss, was setting up blocks well. All of that, a lot of fun to watch. So with that, I guess that kind of ends the mega culpa into the notebook. And now we wanted to do the Johnnycake beefcake of the week. It is the jumbo set. It is the big boy podcast. We love the big boys. We love the trenches. So on the jumbo set, we're going to shout out just something that we saw from a big boy throughout the week. To me, it was Michael Pierce and Travis Jones, the absolute wrecking crew that those two are inside. Michael Pierce on the safety of Gardner Minshew. They had been getting into some pass sets. Michael Pierce's bull rush, Travis Jones as well, just walking the pocket back, creating mayhem. I'll throw Jadeveon Clowney into there too, even. Those three guys. Michael Pierce, you could tell, and the result after the safety, the pure emotion he let out after knowing how much strength and rage he just put into his bull rush was incredible. It was outstanding to watch. I thought that was the beefcake, the Johnnycake moment of the week. Shout out to those Johnnycakes up there in the greater Northeast.
I know we're talking in a traditional sense of, like, you mentioned the beefy boys, the beefcake boys, but I mean, I got to go with my guy, Kyle Hamilton. That's a big boy right there. And that's a guy with a
big boy.
He's getting big. He's got the wingspan of a pterodactyl. He's, 6'4". He probably looks like he's like 6'8" in person from what we saw when we, saw him up close. And my God, did him. And I tweeted a picture, a meme actually, after his second sack, of like Bane versus the guy wearing the pink thing, like they're about to like go to battle, and Kyle Hamilton was Bane and Gardner Minshew was the pink thing. I don't know if that aged great. But I mean, as far as that matchup goes, Hamilton was just absolutely, he looked like an outside linebacker coming off the edge. And, he was unblocked on these sacks, but like when you're a safety and you
one of them he wasn't. One of them he was not, and he was clean through. I think it was Zach Moss, clean right through him, ripped right through, maintained his speed, and hunted down Minshew.
Yeah, sure. And I think part of this maybe is Minshew's recognition not being great, because I feel like when you get a free rush like that as a defensive back, like that's an alarm bell goes off for the QB and they kind of just fire it away. But my God, man, he got there. And if you're talking about a guy with like a smaller wingspan or a guy that doesn't have that type of reach, maybe you're not talking about a sack or at least 3 sacks there, because he just absolutely enveloped Minshew on 3 of those plays. And it wasn't just those. He had a tackle for a loss as well, where he came screaming up to the line of scrimmage. You tweeted that nothing against his deep coverage, but that just feels like where his impact has been like Cam Chancellor-esque to a degree. And that's really what it looked like to me, was Cam Chancellor. And then he also had that pass breakup as well, where Mike, if he batted that thing up in the air and just housed it for a pick six, I think I would have like absolutely like, my pants would have been off just right then and there. But it was an amazing performance. And, he's my Johnnycake beefcake of the week.
Love it. He did look like an outside linebacker. And we had John Harbaugh make comments. One thing we haven't touched on either, speaking of outside linebackers, briefly, Kyle Van Noy, Josina Anderson just tweeted again officially that Kyle Van Noy has signed with the Baltimore Ravens to go bolster their outside linebacker crew. We'll talk a little bit more about that, some other stuff at the very end. But Hamilton, man, Harbaugh said, I think he was asked, are you planning on maybe moving him back into that nickel role? We haven't really seen him tested, and we did talk about, and we saw it once towards the end of the game. Michael Pittman makes a huge catch. Maybe this should have been the mega culpa a bit, but Michael Pittman makes a massive catch over Geno Stone. We haven't really seen Hamilton get tested at all over top, like once. Haven't at all. So it's hard to go say he's not making an impact because he clearly is to some degree, or he would be getting thrown at, would be blowing coverages, something like that. But when he's around the line of scrimmage, he is a superstar. Like that felt like a superstar performance. Not to mention, like you said, the screens that he blows up, his ability to go wrap around backside and go run play side down from behind and end it. We saw him do that. 2 back-to-back plays, runs a Zach Moss rush down from behind, clean, then goes and shoves a receiver through a screen and makes a tackle for a loss. So not just on those sacks, and maybe people are, oh, he's unblocked and whatever. His closing speed's crazy. Like you said, he's huge. He looks like an outside linebacker. So definitely worthy of being the Johnnycake of the week there. I think Kyle Hamilton had an awesome game, and I'm excited to see what he can do. You have to have him in that role some games a lot and every game a little bit because, man, he is so electric when he's around the ball, around the line of scrimmage. So thought that was all good and fun. Now for the smooth AF, I guess, play of the week or moment of the week. To me, it was just the Ravens opening drive. I'm going to give it to Todd Monken and Lamar Jackson on the opening drive. The Ravens just methodically, again, smoothly, cleanly, just go walk down the field. There's not some crazy 65-yard play or anything like that. Couple nice runs. Lamar Jackson getting the ball out. Lamar goes, like I said, follows a quarterback bash, and then just cruises into the end zone. Nice and smooth. So that, I think, was the smooth AF moment or play of the week for me. Make sure to go check out our sponsor, Smooth as boop, F ** K, however you want it, smoothafproducts.com. Go check out their line of lavender CBD shaving cream, shampoo, moisturizer. They do ours products, not his and hers, so they're not taking up a bunch of space. They leave you feeling smooth, smelling better, and just feeling outstanding. So go check out smoothafproducts.com. When a Baltimore master barber wanted to make and use the best shaving cream on his clients, he decided to make his own. Go check it out. Go support a local barber. Go support our podcast by getting yourself some Smooth AF products. Man, they are awesome. People ask me about my hair sometimes. It's my barber. I have a nice haircut. I pay a lot of money for it. He's good at what he does. I use his products. My hair looks good, smells good, feels good, play good, all that good stuff.
That's something I might be interested in.
I'm gonna go with my guy John Harbaugh on not properly communicating to Zay Flowers, and this is my smooth brain play of the week. I don't know if that's totally in the spirit of the segment here, but
no, it is. It is.
It's smooth brain of the week goes to John Harbaugh for it's just total lack of situational awareness, and I think he had the proper situational awareness, but somehow, some way, everybody missed that the clock gets reset. Doesn't communicate to Flowers that he needs to actually make a play with the ball in his hands, not do the fair catch. So it's just a fair catch with nobody within a country mile, 2:01 on the clock. Colts saved 40 seconds out of that. And that was a catastrophic mistake in the game. So that's my smooth AF play of the week, and it goes to John Harbaugh's brain.
I couldn't agree more. I think, and someone ripped into me on Twitter because I said I've never seen Justin Tucker miss a field goal short. And they go, oh, what about Jacksonville last year?
Yeah, the 68-yarder in Jacksonville.
Yeah, he missed the 68-yarder short. Sorry, I forgot about that one. I haven't seen Justin Tucker miss a somewhat reasonable field goal short. Pardon me, correct me. I pay for Twitter Blue. I'll edit it for you. But Jake, you're a John Harbaugh historian. You're somewhat of a Baltimore football historian. I can't think of anything worse that he's done.
No, I mean, it was a 61-yard field goal. Like it was tough.
No, I'm saying the Zay Flowers.
Oh, yeah.
Miscommunication. I can't think of something worse that John Harbaugh has done in a game that we know was pretty much his fault and everybody loves to rip him for being a special teams coach in his wheelhouse. If you're so inclined, I don't remember a blunder by John Harbaugh that was so egregious. Dude, in terms of management and things like that. Maybe there's a challenge here or there or something. I just can't remember.
There's a lot of challenges, and people like to get on him about that. But I mean, and I feel like a lot of those were pre the era where you had an analytics guy or a whoever guy in the booth to tell you challenge, don't challenge, that kind of thing. So there are bad ones there, but
challenging was a little more masculine and macho and bravado.
Yeah, before the libs took over football, and now we're shout out to Clay Travis for that awesome Travis Kelce tweet. But Yeah, it's inexcusable. I mean, it is inexcusable. He is a special teams guy. It's a dead ball foul. It is a free kick. I mean, and you're talking about a guy who took a safety at the end of a Super Bowl and has that minute kind of understanding of the rule book down to a T, where he's able to, make that
see
amazing
into the matrix a little bit, see
moment,
into the realm of outside the box possibilities.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't want to overstate it necessarily, but I mean, this pretty much cost them the game. I mean, the Colts probably would have got the ball back with about, maybe 60 seconds, under 60 seconds to go, but they'd be out.
I think it would have been about, let's say, so the Ravens do end up getting a penalty on Nelson Aguilar. Sure. Yeah. That could have still happened. Sure. They could have fumbled, maybe, whatever. The next time, in a, let's say, average circumstance, without a penalty or without a fumble or something, that the Ravens would have needed that timeout that they didn't use. The Colts would have had the ball, by my calculation, right around 30 seconds left with no timeouts. You don't need that fucking timeout. You don't want to carry that one to the end of the game in the holster. Always burn all your timeouts. Never end a game with timeouts. That's my soapbox of the week.
You're right. He should have just done it no matter what the situation was. Just group everyone together, like get a hold of the situation, take a lay of the land. It reminds me of this might be one of the ones when they just like run Billy Cundiff out there and the clock is just running down and there's chaos everywhere. And then I guess Cook fucked the snap, or whoever was snapping it fucked the snap up. Maybe Considine or whoever it was at the time. Laces were in. Nobody talks about that. It wasn't really Cundiff's fault. 100%. I'll die on that hill. But they run him out there, and the clock is ticking down. It's complete chaos. Take a timeout. Maybe they didn't have a timeout. I don't totally remember. But like, you got to have control in that situation, and they didn't. So that's
you could probably. What was the field goal?
34 yards.
34 yards. Could have taken a delay game.
Yeah, sure. 39 yards from it's one of those things.
Could have just slowed everything down. Regardless, that's what John didn't do Sunday. Slow it down. And I the only saving grace I will say is that, like, all right, you got the safety, you're down a bunch of guys, you felt the letdown coming and escaped it. That safety, it feels like game over. I thought the game was over at that point. Yeah. I was like ready to leave the stadium after the safety. I was like, all right, yep, they won. Let's go, Mom. I was with my mom. Let's go. And they didn't. So I kind of get that part of like, oh, whatever, it's fine. It just wasn't. And I can feel that way, but you're the head coach of an NFL football team that's been in the league for almost 2 decades with this same team doing the same stuff like you mentioned. So you make a great point there about the ability to be so creative or innovative on special teams and in those kind of late game situations, like in the Super Bowl or like those late game holdings and things like that. And then just fucking botch something so basic is frustrating. I think anyone in the world has an absolute right to be frustrated about that, in that period of the refs resetting the clock and the Ravens not knowing what to do.
Honestly, like, I know Zay Flowers is a rookie and he's not used to a 2-minute warning, but also him, like, take a look at the clock real quick. Like, let's have some awareness about the 2-minute warning and like just catch the ball and run for 2 yards and get down. Like, and I think more people are to blame than just John there, but it is largely on his shoulders. Like, you got
And hey, why isn't just Devin Duvernay just the guy always?
Yeah.
The all-pro returner. Why is he not? They were expecting an onside kick, so you take the all-pro returner. Hey, maybe it was, hey, we're going to fair catch this. Whoever was back there couldn't hear it, something. Just let Devin Duvernay handle it. Yeah. Why does Zay Flowers have to be back there? Zay Flowers can't be on the hands team instead of Duvernay. I don't understand why Duvernay is not just back there anyway. So now we got pretty deep into that one, into every nook and cranny of it. But at the end of the day, John, like, come the hell on, man. That very well might have cost the Ravens a win. Dan Rees on Twitter, shout out our boy DP Rees 3 maybe. Was like, I can't tell if you're being sarcastic when I was like, John Harbaugh just made the most egregious error he's ever made. He's like, I don't know if you're being sarcastic. I was like, I'm being dead serious. That was fucking terrible.
Name me
that
one.
Was crazy bad.
Really think on it. Like, name me one that's more egregious. Like, it's pretty fucking bad.
DM us, please. I'm sure there's a couple things we're forgetting that Johnny Boy's messed up.
Don't do that. I'm sure there's going to be like thousands of like DMs now. Like, oh, everyone.
No, I want to see. I want to know if there is something worse because I truly can't remember. I was like, the only thing that comes to mind is like the Patriots whooping his ass with those unbalanced lines and eligible receivers, and that's not even
he made that illegal after the fact, so he was vindicated because he complained to the league and they're like, oh yeah, you're actually kind of right. That's bullshit. We're gonna make that illegal. So
still got big league by Bill, so he'll carry that one to his grave. That's why Bill doesn't care when.
And it's like Yeah, right. And like that, you're riding the wave with John. You're in the boat with Bill. Like Bill is just like Bill is the buoy. John is the yacht in Wolf of Wall Street. We're gonna we'll lose a couple plates. No, it's gonna be like super choppy, and you're riding the roller coaster. And sometimes you just want it to be a little bit more of a smooth experience. But no, you get games like this with him sometimes. It's choppy.
You definitely do. You definitely do. So with that, I think that probably wraps us up for the most part. Got into it pretty deep. We love doing these jumbo sets. There was the therapy. We're calling this jumbo set, backdoor name, Ravens therapy. Because now I feel good. I don't have to talk about it ever again. I'm good to go now. Hopefully you guys feel the same way. Again, if you're listening, please go check out YouTube. Please subscribe. If you can listen there conveniently as opposed to somewhere else, we would love if you did, as we're trying to build our YouTube up. The Ravens will travel to play the number one defense in the NFL. We'll break that all down on our Friday preview episode. Jake and I will be switching in and out. You can check out Road Graders, Cole Jackson. We've been doing some Friday Q&As as well. We probably need to get some Q&A on the jumbo set at some point. We used to do those a ton, and I feel like people like those. So all that good stuff. Appreciate you guys. Jakey, if you have anything else to close us out with, go ahead. And if you want to get us out of here.
Yep. So I am off the grid this weekend. So this is my my last pod until probably next jumbo set, I would say. So everyone enjoy the game this weekend. I will actually be down in Ocean City for Ocean's Calling. So if you're there and you see me, come say what's up. I had some nice interactions with people at Orioles games and stuff recently. So if you're down there and you want to have a drink ski while we enjoy some of the music, say hello. I'll love it. Got to figure out what my game watching situation is going to be. It runs through Sunday. So maybe I'll just kind of sit out the early afternoon stuff and watch the game, watch the Ryder Cup early in the morning. We'll see what happens. But yeah, thank you guys for listening. These have been super fun to do. Feeling very energized right now. I feel like we're really building something. So it's been great. Been a lot of fun. And you guys should check us out on social media. If you liked what you heard, you can find Spencer at Ravens4Dummies. That is the number 4. I am at Jake Louque. That is LOUQUE at Jumbo Set Podcast. You can shoot questions there, and at Exit 52 Podcast for the big daddy of them all.
We do have Settle Up coming up as well.
Yeah, we do,
because we already recorded the Settleman.
We did settle up with the Settleman. Jack is going to hop in, give us some Thursday night picks. So if you're gambling inclined, or if you just like Jack Settleman, which you probably should, we like him too. He's turning into a fast friend of ours. Stick around for a nice little 10, 15 minutes with him, talking some gambling, talking some Thursday night football. He's a true boots on the ground kind of correspondent. He's going to all these games, giving us some tailgating insight. It's a lot of fun. So stick around for that. And we will see you guys later.
All right. We now welcome back our recurring Thursday night analyst, Thursday night haver of fun.
Correspondent, I think. Correspondent probably works because he's actually going to the games.
We do have boots on the ground now. We welcome back for our Settle Up with Settleman segment. We got Jack Settleman of Snapback Sports, of Underdog Fantasy. Jack, how you feeling, my friend? You had a pretty interesting game last week, a Thursday night experience.
I kind of want the Thursday night analyst tag because then I know confidently I could be a better analyst than Al Michaels right now. So I think if I went with analysts, it's just like puts me in a whole new territory.
Are you getting to watch these games if you're going to all of them? Because I agree that the broadcast has been kind of a tough scene.
No, that's actually the funniest part is last year. I guess they did a playoff game on Monday night because we went to the Monday night games. We didn't go to the playoff game. And that was the first time I ever heard Buck and Aikman on ESPN. And it was like a jarring experience. And so now when I just see on Twitter after the fact, people complaining about Al Michaels, I got to go back and like find the tweets and like hear his enthusiasm or lack thereof. But no, I never get to hear the Thursday night broadcast, which is okay. I never have to deal with any Amazon Prime streaming issues. Like when you're at the game, you have less issues. But San Fran Giants, it was a good time. San Fran actually really beautiful out there. It was like 70 degrees, sunny. And because it's a West Coast game, the game starts at like 5:15. So you still get like sunset, that whole thing. I thought the vibes were going to be higher, like Niners fans, or they seem like good fans. And I always say they have my favorite tailgating scene in the whole world. Like I
saw you post that a bunch. You were very pleased with the food setup and everything. Looks like
my God.
I was also
bang vibes were up.
I was hoping you would elaborate on the vibes thing because I saw that and I was like, oh, okay. That's a little bit of a shock.
Yeah, so I've been to Arrowhead tailgate. I've been to the Buffalo famous tailgate where they spray ketchup and they cook off tires and whatever the crazy stuff they do. But I genuinely think they have the best tailgating scene. It's like imagine just like one huge open lot, and it's 3 or 4 long rows of tents, and it's like DJs, Mexican food. Everyone's got their own tacos going on the grill. Those people, honestly, I think they might drink more than any other franchise besides Lambeau, which is this Thursday. It's so funny. Have you guys ever been to Lambeau, to Green Bay?
No, I haven't. I've never been to San Francisco either. And that's interesting you say that, because they strike me as like a wine and cheese kind of crowd, especially out there.
Well,
but we're at the NFL stadium is the thing. So that's where I feel like they can all get together.
It's also Santa Clara. It's also Santa Clara.
That's what I'm thinking. Isn't it like tech bros like commuting down to Santa Clara and just like taking over? Maybe, okay, fair enough.
That's what you would find at the new Warriors arena. The Warriors arena, I went to a finals game. That was the funniest thing in the world. Like, the new stadium is literally just for tech bros. Like, everyone's in a vest and a button down. But Santa Clara is more like that crew. But Lambeau is so funny because there is legitimately nothing to do, obviously, in Green Bay. So all people do is drink beer. Like, that is the entire theme of the trip. Is you go there, drink a bunch of beer, you eat some cheese curds, and you watch football. Like, that's the home of football, in my opinion. So,
I mean,
yeah,
Milwaukee's notoriously I think the drunkest. They have the most bars per capita and the highest rate of straight boozing, I think, in the nation, if I'm not mistaken.
And I think Green Bay people get upset that Milwaukee gets credit for that, because they're like, no, we drink way more. I think they like call Milwaukee people wimps for how much they drink. Like, that's how much Green Bay claims they drink. But the game on Thursday, it was so funny. Everyone's like, oh, it was competitive till the third quarter. Like, no, it wasn't. The score was close, but like the Giants, it blows my mind that you can like almost not even compete in a game in 2023. Like, you can't even try. There was just nothing happening for them. They got dominated. Purdy didn't even look good in the first half, so there was an opportunity, but that Giants team isn't very good. But good time. I really thought we were going to hit the McCaffrey unders. Like, they did not need to use him, and then they gave him like 4 carries in the fourth when they could have easily used Elijah Mitchell. So I was a little salty about that. But the rest of it made sense.
When you came on here last week, your biggest, most confident point was the Giants team total under, which did hit them.
Of course. So we still have that. We're 1-0 on the show on our official picks. What do I do this week, though? Because I did say I like taking like the crappy teams team total under in prime time, which unders are like 9-2 in prime time this year right now. So it's been a good formula. But now you've got the Lions as 1.5 point favorites. What do you guys think about that? I'm actually curious your point of view.
So I haven't gotten to see a ton of the Packers yet so far this year, but I anticipated them being a sneaky wild card type team. From what I saw, they've been able to stabilize their offensive line. Rasheed Walker from Penn State, 7th round pick last year, a guy I was super high on. Saw he hasn't given up a pressure so far this year. I feel like Jordan Love has just been, every time I see him in space, able to push the ball downfield. They haven't even had Christian Watson. Aaron Jones has been banged up. Rashawn Gary, I believe, has some sort of light injury that he's been playing through, but still has I think 4 sacks. PFF said they don't do half sacks, which I like. It's either a sack or it's not. I agree with that. But he has 4 sacks on 45 pass rushes. Obviously, they were able to go shut down Jameis Winston after he came in and go get that W. So I think there's something confident. Plus, it's a divisional game, so that really on top of it throws in the variability, I think. So usually when there's a divisional game, if there's a heavy favorite, I might tend to favor, the underdog there. But this one's, I mean, I guess the Lions would be favored at Ford Field by probably 3.5 or 4, somewhere around there. So tough on that one. I don't know. I might be looking to maybe see what Josh Reynolds' lines are. I haven't taken a look at it yet, but that's probably the one direction I'm looking right now. But I feel like Vegas is probably going to start correcting those, and he might be due for a little low one there.
Yeah, this one is super tricky because normally like Jones and Watson would play Sunday and then they'd be obvious sits, right? The turnaround's too short, but they didn't play So maybe they are a go on Thursday. I don't know yet. I don't know the vibe. I do think because they won that game in a huge comeback way, that maybe they feel like they could get away with 2-2, or maybe they could, even steal a win without those guys because they just won a game without them. If they were 1-2, I feel like those guys would definitely be playing. Jake, what do you think?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like Jordan Love, I think, has been an interesting kind of fun watch. He almost looks a little bit like Aaron Rodgers, and it feels like he's kind of doing it on purpose. Like if you ever watch Charlie Woods like play golf, it kind of looks like he's trying to do stuff like Tiger Woods stuff on purpose, and it's kind of cool. Like it's aesthetically really fun. I did say this after they beat the Bears in week 1. It felt a little smoke and mirrors and kind of fugazi to me. Like there was kind of some catch and run stuff there with Jones. Like he threw for 3 touchdowns, but he had a long catch and run from Jones. Not a lot of sustained drives. It was like off of turnovers and things like that. But he looked okay. He looks fine to me. Up against the Lions defense, especially like their offensive line with the Packers, it's kind of weird right now. I feel like David Bakhtiari is like intentionally sitting out games or whatever the hell's going on there. He doesn't want to play on turf. Okay, that's fine. Whatever. This is in Lambeau. So I don't know. Hopefully they get back to full strength. But this Lions front with the kid from Michigan and all these guys that are stepping up and playing pretty well, playing pretty hard for Dan Campbell. I mean, I don't know. It's something where I look at the Lions being favored on the road anywhere, and maybe it's just helmet scouting, but it makes me feel weird. So I'd probably, I think I'd just take the Packers straight up here.
Yeah, it's tough to go against that. I will say the Packers were in a weird state of mind last year when we were there. They played the Rams and Baker was the quarterback, and then obviously they lost to the same Lions team. I didn't see the home field advantage that you would anticipate at Lambeau, like some crazy raucous crowd. They're diehards. Like, don't get that twisted. But nothing that I think like the Lions are super fearful of. And after last year's win, I think they proved that. It does just feel like a true coin flip. So going with the underdogs, probably not the worst thing. I will say my one piece on Love is I think he's good. I really do think he's like good. But I don't think he's like, 2.5 touchdowns a game good, which is what he's averaging through the first 3. Like some of those things, Aaron Jones ran a Texas route and scored a 60-yard
what
touchdown.
I have seen is that apparently from a couple of the guys that do the data visualizations, the first read is getting the ball, and with separation, I think at the first or second highest clip for the Packers. In other words, LaFleur is doing a good job scheming guys open, and Love's getting them the ball when he does. So that's a lot of it, and that's what good like. People want to talk poorly about Tua. You have to make the right decision still, put the ball on accurately, all those things. So I think Brock Purdy, we just talked about a little bit. Scheme guys open. Quarterback has to play point guard still, get them the football. I think Jordan Love looks like a point guard right now.
You guys tell me, because I think this is the missing quote or missing question for me. Is the Lions defense good? Because last year, I think people forgot they were literally the worst defense in football. And
historically bad rush defense.
Like they could not stop me and you out there. Like if we schemed it up the right way. And then because Dan Campbell, like his personality, people just assume that they're a good defense. And now through the first 3 weeks, it's like they limited Mahomes. He obviously didn't have Kelsey, or his weapons were terrible. And then like they let up 80 points in the Dome to Seattle, and then they come back this week and like made Desmond Ridder look bad. I think I could probably play defense on the opposite side of Desmond Ridder. So it's like, what do we even know right now? So what do you guys think? Is the Lions defense good or is it bad?
I will say the Lions defense is not bad. I think that Brian Branch, from what I've seen, has come in and been a line of scrimmage slot nickel impact player against the run, specifically able to make plays underneath. Aiden Hutchinson is going to give you that high motor, like 80% of TJ Watt kind of guy. That's what I've always thought about him. They have Big Aleem McNeil in the middle, who was another guy I was huge on coming out of NC State. Absolute freak at nose tackle. He's stepping into a full-time role now in year 2. So I think we saw them. They just played the Falcons, who obviously can run the football. Arthur Smith, one of the best run game minds in the league, and were able to thwart it. So I don't know if they're a good defense. Would be remiss to pretend like I've been watching their DBs and what they're doing on the back end, but I think they're not a bad, let alone a historically bad defense. Jake.
Yeah, it's like I just feel like they're kind of young and they're growing together. Like you've got a cornerstone player at pretty much every level. You mentioned Branch, you got Hutchinson up front, you got Jack Campbell now they're plugging into the middle, and you're going to make mistakes, and it's the NFL. And when you have a receiving core like the Seahawks, I don't think they had Smith and Jigba out there, but they've still got plenty of dudes. it's going to be tough to really sustain yourself, especially after coming off a really emotional win like they had in Kansas City. And that, it's just there's some weird stuff that can happen after games like that. But I don't know. Aaron Glenn's still there. Like, he's going to coach guys up. He's had a really good start to his career as a defensive coordinator. So I think not as bad as we saw recently, and probably not as good as we saw against Kansas City, but I think they'll settle in. I think I'll say they're good, not very good.
Okay. All right. Then I'm going to give the official pick. I'm going to say no game picks for me until Thursday. I got to be on the ground, boots on the ground, feel the vibes. Like,
Okay.
You start having a couple beers with the Lambeau faithful, and that plus money, is looking better. But I will say the one pick I'm going to ride is Jared Goff to not throw an interception. He's thrown a pick in back-to-back games. Before that, he didn't throw an interception for like 10 consecutive games. I think he'll protect the ball better in a divisional matchup in prime time, a stadium that he's pretty comfortable with. And I don't think the Packers defense necessarily is going to create a ton of havoc. Like, they're a solid unit, but you don't really need to throw at Jair. You can throw the other way and end up all right. So Jared Goff will not throw an interception on Thursday night. That's my bet of the day.
I love it. Lock it in. Jared Goff under interceptions from the Settleman himself. I was toying around here as we're talking. What I ended up thumb tapping into was Lions alt spread plus 4.5, parlayed with Sam Laporta, 25 plus receiving yards, parlayed with Jared Goff, 225 plus passing yards. That was plus 138. That's my kind of parlay. It's very, very.
You've been playing those, and they're looking good. Like, I have no problem with a plus 130. I prefer, especially on a team like the Lions, where the volume for the big guys is going to be there, right? Like Amon-Ra and Laporta, because outside of Reynolds, like Raymond, like it's just random dudes. The only thing that makes me nervous is like the plus 4.5. Like, I don't know. If you think the Lions are going to win, do you think they're going to lose close? I guess divisional game, they obviously could, but I
think it'll come. I think if the Lions lose, my logic was if the Lions lose, it's on the final possession and they'll need to score a touchdown down 4. So I bought myself a little bit there. That was, I think, minus 285, if I'm not mistaken. Minus 250 on FanDuel currently.
I've been absolutely raking on quarterback rushing overs. Jordan Love's been running it a little bit. I got him 16.5 yards. That's minus 120. If you're feeling frisky, I got an alternate at plus 180 for 25 plus yards. I'm probably
no Jared Goff. Like,
no, I'm not seeing
alternate 7 yards.
No, but I've been doing that. I've been expecting guys that you wouldn't expect to run. I've just been kind of sprinkling them into my parlays and getting a little value add there every single time. You would expect Jordan Love to run, but I don't know, 25 plus 180. It's not the craziest thing in the world. If you bust off 1 or 2, like for 2 first downs, like you're already in that territory. So
I think that the best prop player that Vegas has a handle on is Baker Mayfield's rushing totals. I swear, play them every week, put $1 on it just for fun.
He's one of them that I've made money on.
It's within a couple yards almost every time over the last couple of years. Something I always watch. He'll bust out a 25-yard run occasionally, something like that, but he usually has like 3 6-yard scrambles or something like that, and it'll be like 15.5. It's Vegas is on top of Baker Mayfield's rushing totals. So that's a fun one to play every single week. If you just want something to giggle about, put $1 on a Baker Mayfield rushing total. So with that, I think that was Settle Up with Settleman. Again, Jack coming back for the second time here, as we're going to be having him on the Jumbo set every week. Give a little preview, little review. What was the Thursday night experience like last time? You can follow Snapback Sports on Snapchat. Go check it out. Snapback Sports on YouTube, on Twitter, everywhere, all over the place. Jack, tell people everything else you're working on, what you want people to do, and how they can support you.
No, that's all love. Excited to be a recurring guest officially. Thanks, fellas.
Thanks for coming on.
We love it. All right. Thank you so much, Jack. And I guess that does it for this episode. We will see you guys later. See you.
Arrivederci.
Beautiful. Thanks, fellas.
Yeah, of course.
Appreciate you. Thank you, Jackie.
All right, we'll talk. Go Ravens, beat the Browns. Watson's a pervert. All right. Oh, we're still recording.
No, you covered it all. You covered it all. We'll leave that part in.
Yeah. Well,
no, you gotta leave that part in. All right, see you,
yeah.
Players play really, really hard, and they execute the system, and that's what it's all about. Yes,
There
sir.
it is.
Trust.
He's pretty
Big trust. Big trust, baby.
Right on cue. Hey, right on cue. Hey, let me.